Okay, so there's one portion left in bio related to plants, and that is going to be the soil profile. So, what is the soil, how it is important for us, and how we are going to preserve it. That is important for us. So, uh, the the soil profile. Whenever I talk about profile, you go for an interview and they'll tell you that show your profile. Okay, so what will you say that show your profile as? Means show the entire job description that you have done before, your education and everything. So basically the profile word itself means an entire description of what the thing is. So the soil profile here we mean is that how the layers of the soil is there in the earth's surface. We know the earth's surface is broken into a lot of layers, the upper layer, then the meso layer, and all those different layers are there in the land, in the earth's surface. Out of that, we're only talking about the part in which the soil is there. Okay, so that is called as the soil profile. Okay, so out of that, the uppermost layer where we see the mainly the grasses growing, the plants growing, and all of those are called as the organic part. So each level has been given a specific name. So like for example, O layer, A layer, B layer, C layer, and R layer. Okay, so they're all different types of layering names that has been given. Okay, after that, after the first organic layer, we come to the next layer. Then that organic layer is mixed with a lot of mineral matter. Minerals, again, we're talking about all the metals that are present uh, in some form of dissolved salts. By now, you must have understood that we get a lot of dissolved salts. Yesterday, also, we spoke in water that water is mixed with a lot of minerals. But not only the water will not be only mixed with sodium, it will be mixed with a salt of a sodium. For example, say sodium chloride. Yesterday, we spoke about hardness of water happening because of calcium and magnesium. Now, calcium and magnesium will just not be alone calcium and magnesium. It will be with certain other components. That would be calcium carbonate, magnesium carbonate, calcium sulfate, magnesium sulfate, and so that is why we call those to be as minerals. The source that the plants are going to pick up from that is calcium and magnesium only, but they will be present in form of a salt. Okay, then the next layer we come, this layer will be mainly mixed with sand and clay. There are different types of soil, clay soil, sandy soil, silty soil. So all those kind of soils are mixed into it. Then the below part of it, that is the sea layer. The sea layer will be called as the rocky layer. Mainly the rocks are there. Lot many rocks are there. And below that is a again very hard material. So it's kind of the bedrocks. Okay, below this comes the tectonic plates and everything which we talk about when we are talking about earthquakes. So below this comes your tectonic plates and all those things. So this is your soil profile. We'll just go you don't need to go too much in details into this. We'll go into a brief into what all this is there. Did anyone say something?
Yes, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
Ma'am, don't change the slide. I just need to write the O, A, B, C, and R.
Okay. So you know what? Ma'am just told us in the beginning, all these slides are available uh, on the portal. You can go to the portal and see it at your ease. Don't be in a hurry right now. In a hurry, you might just write something wrong. So you can write it at your ease after with the class. So after the class, you see the entire thing. It will be a re-revision for you also.
Ma'am, what is a portal?
The web portal, which ma'am just sent the address, the web address. Okay, we go to the next
Ma'am,
slide.
I had come at 10:05, ma'am, because I had waked up a little late, ma'am. So, ma'am, I
No
didn't got
problem.
that.
No problem. We'll go to the next slide. Okay. So, like I explained you, what is a soil profile? If I am going to cut the soil into a vertical section, so I'm going from up to down, I'm cutting the section, I'm going like making a slice of it, So I'll be able to see that which layers are there. So all those layers is what we call as the soil profile. Okay. First layer, as I told you, it's composed of all the decomposed material. So this layer is like pretty thick, it is some around 10, 15 feet deep. All the plants and all those things, when they die, they automatically fall on the soil itself only. Animals, plants, okay, they all fall into the soil only, and they all will get deposited in the soil, and soil will come, a new layer of soil will come over them. So in the process, there are decomposing bacteria. Those are called as decomposing bacteria. You must have studied in the food cycle, in the food chain, that the decomposing bacteria are the ones that will convert the entire body of a plant or an animal back into its individual components. So that decomposed material and all this entire biological species, whatever you see, for example, I'm talking about let's say earthworms. We spoke about all the types of unicellular organisms like amoeba, paramecium. A lot of times they are present in the upper layer of the soil. All these things are present in the first layer. The first layer is very rich of any biological activity. So whenever you want to study what is the biological composition of the soil, you just have to pick up, you don't have to go very deep, you have to go like hardly 2 or 3 feet. You will get a good quantity of biological species there. People do study that. They pick it up and they'll study it in the microscope, and they judge the quality of the soil out there. Okay, so this is the first layer, the O layer it is called. Okay, then we go to the A layer. The A layer, I told you, is very rich in minerals. So what happens is that your roots, the plant roots, will go all the way till the A layer because they need the minerals. The A layer needs the minerals. So the plant roots will extend all the way, especially the big trees I'm talking about. See, the small ones will not go up to that layer. But the big trees, the big evergreen trees which are there, pine trees, and a lot of big evergreen trees, they all will have their roots going up to layer A because they will find a lot of rich source of minerals out there. So all the decomposed matter that happened in the O layer has reached into the layer A, through seeping, because along with all this, even water is going to seep. So with water, they will seep and they will go to the layer A. And this layer is mainly darker than the O layer. Okay. After that, the B layer, as I told you, is made up of a lot of clayey soil, a lot of silty soil. So all this different type of soils that is there is getting mixed out there. And there again, you will find a lot of minerals also. For example, you will find carbonates, you'll find iron, you'll find gypsum. So all this is there. So another name for the A layer is also called as topsoil. Another name for B layer is also called as subsoil. Okay. Then comes the C rock. The C is called as the as a weathered rock. Yesterday we spoke about the rock getting weathered. Okay, what happens? The water gets into the creeks and crevices of the rocks, and there the uh, there the water will get stored out there. As and when that part becomes cold, means probably it reaches to 4 degrees and below to that, it will start to freeze. The minute it will start to freeze, it will expand. It will put the pressure on the rock that it has got into, and that rock will start to break. That is what we call as weathering of rock. Okay, so this partial weathering. So the rock has got partially weathered and it is going to be there. So that is going to be the sea level, sea horizon, or it is also called as the weathered rock. Okay, and the last rock is the hard bedrock, the mainly, the ones that is not really broken basically. Okay, so that is the hard weathered rock, and that is there. So this the soil, if you go to see, it is from big particles below, then smaller particles, more smaller particles above. So from the below layer, if you see, you go to the top, you'll see big chunks of rocks, then smaller chunks of rocks, and then more smaller, then it becoming soil, and then very, very small bits of soil. So this is how the entire soil profile is.
So,
Okay,
ma'am,
and
so,
yes,
ma'am, the biggest chunks of rock is by the hard bedrock
yes,
layer.
the hard bedrock. Yes, the hard bedrock. Okay, and the uppermost layer is what you will find rich in your biological species activities. This is what is we call as the soil profile. Next. Next slide. So in the next, you can do this activity. Okay, you can, if you go down, you can collect where your plants are growing. Okay, where there's a tree or where there's a small plant growing, there will be mud around it. Okay, you can pick up the mud in some glass vessel and fill it halfway through with the mud and fill it half with water. After some time, you will observe that the entire thing will adjust as per the density. So you will find that the more denser, the bigger rocks will settle down as given in the picture. Then there'll be smaller rocks. Then there will be all the sandy, silty, clayey soil. And then you'll find the top layer soil. And in the top layer soil, you'll find all the water. And mind you, if you see it carefully in the water, you will see some a small moving worms also, if that soil has those things. Or then you might find dead parts of the plant, that is, you might find dead roots or dead leaves that will also be floating on top of it. So the entire soil profile is what can be made uh, from any part of the, so you have to just go a little bit deep into the soil and just pick up half a cup of a transparent, in you need to do it in a transparent cup so that you can see it well. So you do it in a transparent cup and then you fill it with water, so you'll be able to see the layers of the soil. Okay, this is how we create a soil section. Next. Okay. Very important to understand. I explained you the entire soil profile. If you go to see the soil profile, the soil, or if instead of the soil, I'm using the word, the land itself is acting as a natural purifier. So because of the layers that is formed, all those layers helps to purify the water that is going into the ground. Yesterday we spoke that about the usable quantity of water, and out of that only from 1%, 30% was available in the groundwater. Now what is this groundwater? The rainwater that comes and gets seeped into the entire soil through the pores of the soil will go. See, water is something that will find its way. Okay, so water will keep on finding its way till wherever it can go maximum. Okay, so it will keep on going into those layers, it keeps on going, and in that entire process it gets filtered a lot. So what is it that we when you want to find water from the ground, what do you call that kind of thing? What do you call that? When you take water from the ground, what do you call it?
Ma'am, well,
Wells, right? Wells, no? So that well is what is the groundwater that we are talking about, and that well water is very purified. Yes, it will be hard water. See, I'm talking about two different things. Hard and pure are two different things. It will be hard water because it will contain a lot of minerals into it. That is why if you go to see, well water has a different taste only. When you put bores, there is boring water probably in all societies, a lot of people who have individual houses, they also have a boring water. What do? They dig a hole right up to, like, say, till wherever they find water. So some people might find water at 30 feet, 40 feet, 200 feet, depends on different soil. So wherever they are finding that water will be right from the ground. That water will be a pure water, because it has got purified through all that layers that it has passed, soil layer, the mineral layer, the small rocks, the big rocks, all that has purified water. But that water will contain a lot of minerals, and that is why we get a different taste in different cities, in different places. The boring water, the well water is different because of the quantity of the minerals present inside that.
Ma'am,
Water itself, yesterday we spoke, has no taste. It's only because of the dissolved minerals that it gets its taste. Yes.
ma'am is because of the minerals. Is that the reason? Because sometimes from the well water tastes a bit like a bit dirt, a bit. It feels like it has a bit of mud in it.
Yeah, that will all be because of the different minerals inside it.
Okay.
And you, next time, try to observe drinking well water from different cities when the next time you get chance to go to different cities. Okay, try to taste it. You'll find it different at different places. Okay, next slide.
Okay.
So this is how water is purifying. We can make a small purifier at a home. What we can do is, we can get, on the right side you can see, you can take a bottle, cut it into half, the lower portion of it, a big Pepsi bottle or a PET bottle, something of that sort. And below we fill it with, first we'll fill it with sand. Then over that you can put charcoal layer. Charcoal is also a good adsorbing material. It absorbs a lot of impurities onto it. Then there will be a coarse. Coarse means little bit bigger particles of sand or bigger particles of rock. And on the top you will have big rocks. So the minute you'll pour the water, you'll see that the water is seeping through all these layers, and finally the water that will come below will be a pure water. Okay,
So,
so
ma'am,
this
can
is
we try
how.
this experiment?
Ma'am, will this water be hard water?
Sorry.
Ma'am, can we
Ma'am,
try
will
this
this water
experiment?
be hard water?
Yes, you can try this experiment, and this water will definitely be hard water, because it water has got the dissolved minerals. It is not going to remove the minerals. It will only remove the physical impurities that is there into it. This water will not even remove the biological, if any, invisible organisms are there. You'll have to boil the water and drink it. But this is a emergency water kind of a filter that we can make if you're traveling to a place where you feel that you might not get filtered water. Nowadays, what happens, no? The AquaGuard and all those companies are making such kind of bottles which has all these different layers and different nets and different surfaces there. So you have to just put the water on the top part. It will get filtered, and from below you will get the purified water. So it's like a portable purifier with you. Okay, but
Ma'am, is
this
there
is
any?
what you can try it at home. You can try it at home, and you can see if you get. Let us know. Let us post pictures. What kind of water you put into it and how the water got filtered. Okay.
Ma'am, is there anything we can use instead of charcoal?
Instead of charcoal, don't use anything. Just use different layers of soil.
Okay, ma'am.
Charcoal is a good adsorbent which we put into our aquaguards also. If you don't have charcoal, it's okay, no harm. You can simply use different layers of soil, different textures of soil.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, next. Soil erosion. What is soil erosion? When we spoke about the topsoil, Below the O, we've got the A layer. When the A layer starts becoming loose, so what happens is that all the plants that are there inside it, embedded inside it, it will lose its surface and it will fall away. So basically, that soil is becoming loose and it's getting weathered away. It's going away because of the action of probably wind, water. These are the natural actions. There could be unnatural action, that is man-made actions. People are doing a lot of construction, so because of that, the soil is becoming loose and it is just flowing away. So this soil erosion is when the soil is flowing away, the soil is going away. And this is a very important concern, because if soil erosion takes place, it causes a lot of harms. Next slide. So the one of the man-made could be the deforestation, that is when they're cutting a lot of trees. Second could be when the man leaves a lot of cattle to graze over. The cattle will keep on picking up the organic matter, and when they pick up a lot of organic matter, along with that, the soil is becoming loose. So if you go to see in both these cases, what is happening? When you're removing the vegetation, the soil is becoming loose. So basically, you should not cut down trees. No cutting down of trees should not be done. That is why cutting down of trees is is banned in India. You should not do. There's a heavy fine for cutting one tree also. So that is not to be done. Secondly, is action of wind and water. If there is a lot of, you must have seen right now, there was a cyclone. It caused so much of harm, because of that wind. A
Ma'am, it
lot of,
was the hurricane.
yes. So a lot of wind caused a lot of trees to fall, and sometimes when there is flood or when the river overflows, the the river banks, the trees which are there, they will become loose. The soil becomes loose, and that causes soil erosion. So basically, what is it that you have to do to prevent soil erosion? You have to afforestation. So you have to plant trees, not deforestation. You have to afforestation. You have to plant trees. There's another way that is called as terrace farming. Can you see the layers in the terrace farming? So that layering in the
Yes,
terrace
ma'am.
farming helps also in preservation of water, first thing, and secondly, it also prevents soil erosion. Okay, and the the third part is called as you're making these kind of filter beds. So this kind of filter beds are made in which the water is also not moving a lot, you're not wasting water, and it is also preventing soil erosion. Okay, next. Okay, so we finished the part of soil. Any questions related to this?
Ma'am, I did not understand soil erosion.
Soil erosion is when the soil is becoming loose and flowing away. So when the soil is becoming loose and it flows away, along with that, all the plants, all the organic matter is also flowing away with it. So that is what is called as soil erosion. It is
So,
flowing
ma'am,
away.
it does not have a good ability to like suck water into it.
There is no soil only, na? The soil is only
The
running away.
soil
How will
starts
it not
flowing
Okay,
suck
out
ma'am.
water?
of and the trees are just getting that causes also
Okay,
landslide.
ma'am.
Hmm.
Thank you, ma'am.
Ma'am, I
Anyone
have
else?
yes, ma'am, I have a
Hmm.
question. Ma'am, I didn't understand. I mean, how soil erosion happens, ma'am, because if it's like see for the overgrazing one or the deforestation one, they're just like cutting off the top layer. That I mean, they're just cutting off in overgrazing. I just eating the grass and all. But ma'am, you said it's from below the soil. How does that happen? But how does that affect anything to the soil below?
See, once the vegetation from the top is removed, okay, now that soil is empty. What happens, no, when there is a vegetation, any kind of vegetation, if there are trees or there are grasses, the roots go so deep down. I told you all, they go to the layer A. If the roots are so deep down, what will happen is, see, right now also, if you go down and you try to pull out one tree, it will not come out. You try to pull out even small weeds also, small grasses also, it will not come out. Even if it comes out also, along with the roots, a lot of soil comes out. So basically, your roots kind of protect the soil. They kind of become like, they tie threads around the soil. That those roots become like threads that are making the soil firm in the place. So if you're removing those things from the ground, if in the grazing they will remove the entire thing. In the now, because you don't have the trees, you're talking that you're just cutting the tree, right? You're not cutting the below part of the tree. But now the tree is cut. Now the tree is not going to do. Now the root will not support. The root will not get food from anywhere. There is no photosynthesis happening. Where will the root get food from? The plants, the the leaves were doing photosynthesis, and that food was going to the root. That food was going to the stem, because of which it was alive. Now it is dead. So that part will come easily off. So because of that, all that the roots, basically it is the roots that were anchoring the plant, the roots that were holding the soil together, that entire thing will now come out easily. And so you say that the soil becomes loose and the soil can flow away.
So, ma'am, the trees and all lose their grip in the soil and they start falling down.
Yes, yes.
Okay, ma'am.
Anything else? Okay. So we'll go to our next part. We have got three systems that we had to still study. So we're going to study three systems. One is the brain that we had to study, the parts of the brain. One was the endocrine system and one was the teeth. Okay, so we'll first go to the brain. Okay, so we're talking about the human brain. We're talking about basically, if I talk about human brain, I can also talk about a mammal brain. Okay, the only difference in the human brain and any other mammal brain is that the human brain has got the power to think. Okay, so um, if you want to really see the brain also, you could actually okay, forget it. Okay, so we'll go to the next part. We'll go to the next slide. Okay, so we're talking about the human brain. Okay, the human brain mainly has got three parts. Three parts are there mainly in the human brain. Okay, the first part of the brain called as the cerebrum, the upper part. Can you see the part that is in like dark pink color? The dark pink
Yes,
color is
ma'am.
called as the cerebrum. Okay, below that there is a lighter pink color brain that is called as the cerebellum.
Cerebellum.
Okay, and below that there is a stem
Brain
that is called
stem,
as the
ma'am.
brain stem, or it is also called as the medulla. So these three are the main parts of the brain. Besides that, the brain has got two types of glands. One gland is called as the pituitary gland, and one gland is called as the hypothalamus. What and how the function are, I'm going to explain it. Just hold on. Okay, we'll go to the next slide. Okay. So we're talking about the cerebrum, cerebellum, and the medulla. Medulla oblongata, you can call it as the brain stem also. Okay. First, we'll talk about the cerebrum. Cerebrum is very important. It is called as the seat of learning. That is the place where the entire learning process is taking place. Okay, the entire intelligence that our brain works on, the learning that we're doing day to day, the you do judgment that this is right, this is wrong, your speech, your memory, everything is coming from the cerebrum. Okay, your senses, the senses of your hearing, your vision, your taste, your smell, so all the senses that are there, they are all connected to your cerebrum. So basically the important part of the brain is called as the cerebrum. Okay, that is very important. Okay, the entire movements, your body voluntary movements are being conducted by the cerebrum. In the muscles we spoke about, voluntary muscles and involuntary muscles. The voluntary muscles are the ones that we are moving on our will, and the involuntary muscles is that is automatically happening. For example, the digestion process, the kidney is
The
forming the
heart, ma'am.
urine, the heart is beating. All those things are just happening on their own, right? So those are the involuntary muscles. Those involuntary muscle connection is somewhere else. But right now, the voluntary muscles are all connected to your brain. Okay, so your brain, your cerebrum, that is the upper part of the brain, is very important, and it is the main seat of learning. Okay, now we'll go to the cerebellum. Cerebellum is called also as the small brain or the hind brain. Small brain or the hind brain. What does it do? It helps us in maintaining the balance and the coordination. That, when you're playing football, okay, the ball is coming towards this. Now I have to kick it towards the right, towards the left. I'm playing tennis. I know where I have to move my racket. That entire balancing and coordination will happen from your cerebellum. Okay, cerebellum is very delicate also. Okay, if anything happens to your cerebellum, you can die. See, anything happening to your cerebrum, you can still survive, but something happening to your cerebellum, a blow to your cerebellum, you can die. So I think probably people who are learning martial arts or who are learning taekwondo and this, they will study that how you have to protect uh, your cerebellum in fights that happens. Okay,
So, ma'am,
and
does the cerebrum act like a shield for the cerebellum?
no, not really. You can the cerebellum uh, is pretty much open from behind, so it is not a shield, not at all. Okay. Now the medulla oblongata. So what is the medulla oblongata doing? It is doing all the involuntary functions. For example, your beating of the heart, maintaining your uh, pressure, then how, anything like swallowing, vomiting, all those kind of actions, the digestion process, all that is being handled by your medulla oblongata. Okay, so basically anything that you are learning, anything that already is there in your learning process from the time you're born. See, there are some things that from your day you're born, it is already present. It is called as there are two types of skill. One is in inherited skill and one is acquired skill. So the in inherited skill is what is there in your birth, is there in your birth. Okay, so those inherited skill is all stored in your cerebrum. Okay, now the cerebellum is the balancing part. Okay, the cerebellum is the balancing part, and the medulla oblongata is mainly doing all the involuntary functions. Okay, so all these things is happening by the parts of the brain. Now this is the inner part of the brain. Okay, the inner part of the brain, that is the inside part, is protected on the outermost layer by a very thick skull, by a thick skull. So because of that thick skull that is there, our inner part of the brain, this is very soft material, okay, that is being protected, and it is that skull is very hard. So if anybody undergoes a brain surgery or something, they have to actually cut the entire thing with a axe, with a small axe. They cut the part of the skull and then they do any surgery that has to be done into the brain. So this is how the parts of the brain work. Okay.
But how does it, ma'am? You said just now that the skull, like the brain is inside the skull, ma'am. But ma'am, when you said during a brain surgery, the doctors have to like cut your skull. So, ma'am, how doesn't the person die?
The person will not die. The skull doesn't have any nerves attached to it. The skull is just the bone.
Okay.
You break your bone, na? Do you die?
No, ma'am.
So that same way, the skull is a bone. You open up the skull, and after opening up the skull, you do the surgery, and after doing the surgery, you again fix it up. It takes time to heal, but yes, it does happen.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, next slide. Next slide. Okay, so now we're talking about. I told you about there are two glands. Okay, one is called as the pituitary gland. Okay, this pituitary gland, where is it exactly located? It is very small. It is about the size of a pea. The green color peas that we have, it is very small. Okay, um, so this pituitary gland is that pea size. Okay, and the pituitary gland is called uh, as an endocrine gland. We'll be studying that endocrine gland next. What does it do? The gland plays an important role to release a lot of hormones. Now, what are these hormones? These hormones are nothing but they are protein molecules, and they are special molecules which are kind of signals to different other glands that now you have to start doing this process. Okay, so a lot of times as you grow up, there are a lot of changes in your body that is taking place. You undergo the process of puberty, the 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 boys, the girls. That entire change happens because these glands produce signals that is in the form of hormones, and those hormones uh, are sending signals to the other glands. Okay, now you have to do this work. For example, it will tell the boys that the boy's skin that now, okay, now you will have to start growing mustache. Now you'll have to start growing beard. Okay,
Ma'am,
that
ma'am, I had some internet connection problem. Can you please tell me what had happened?
So the pituitary gland is very small gland. It is the size of a pea. Okay, it is located somewhere. If you can see clearly, it is located near in the cerebrum only. It is located in the cerebrum part of it only. Okay, very small. You can see it is a bilobed structure. Can you see the pink layer and the brown? The brown, both of them. It's like a bilobed, double lobe thing. Okay, so these two things are there. Okay, so these two bilobe structures are there, and they will be working as your glands that produce certain hormones. Those hormones are nothing but protein molecules. They are like signals for other glands to start doing their work. Okay, we'll go to the next slide. Okay, now we're talking about the hypothalamus. Hypothalamus is just above the pituitary gland. Can you see the pituitary gland, and just above that it is written hypothalamus? Okay, so this hypothalamus is basically the part, and that is somewhere near to your ear. Okay, it is somewhere behind the ear. It is called as the thermostat, the internal thermostat. It helps to maintain the heat in your body. So the hypothalamus is what is connecting your body to maintain the temperature. Now this is what I had asked you all a question when we had done
Yes, ma'am,
temperature.
I remember. That's why we do the
Yeah, I
check
had
the
asked you
temperature
that
in the
why do
ear.
we click, why do we get those thermometers that click into your ears? They put an infrared signal into your ears, they click it there because it goes and directly connects to a part, to another gland which is called as the hypothalamus. And that is the one that is controlling your body's temperature. So if your body is very, very hot, it will tell your body that you're very hot. So please perspire. So the minute you perspire, you're releasing heat outside, and so your temperature becomes low. Okay, or if supposing you are feeling cold, you start shivering. That entire process is happening by the control of your hypothalamus. Okay, So you've got two glands in your brain. One is the pituitary gland and one is the hypothalamus. Okay, so these 5 parts of the brain, that is the 3 parts of the brain are there, and there are two glands into it. One is the pituitary gland and one is the hypothalamus. Okay, next. So we finished the brain. Any questions related to the brain?
No, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am, I
Tell
have a
me.
doubt that is the brainstem connected to our spine?
Yes, the brain stem is connected to your spine. It's connected to your spinal cord. Finally, the brain stem gets connected to your spinal cord. It's correct.
Okay.
Anyone else? Okay. So we'll go to the next
Ma'am,
task.
what are the other parts of the brain?
What other parts? Oh, there are only 3 parts of the brain: cerebrum, cerebellum, and medulla oblongata. That's it.
Ma'am, the cerebellum are the two main parts of the brain, right?
No, 3 parts. All the 3 parts are main: cerebrum, cerebellum, and medulla oblongata. All 3 of them are main parts of the brain.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. We'll go to the next slide. So now we're talking about the endocrine system. Okay. Now this is where I spoke about that there are different glands in your body that will produce a special kind of a protein which we called as hormones. Okay. Lot many glands are there which do their particular function. Okay. We'll go to the next slide. Okay. So the endocrine system, what is basically the endocrine system? The endocrine system is what is made up of many glands are there in the entire body. They are making hormones. Hormones, I told you, are those special kind of proteins. They are called as a chemical messengers. They will carry the information. They will carry the instruction from one part of the body to the other part of the body, and they'll tell that other part of the body, okay, now we do the function, the particular function has to be done. That entire thing is called as the endocrine system, and those special things that are moving in your body are called as the hormones. Okay, and now where these hormones are released, these hormones are released into your blood. So these glands are connected to your bloodstream so that the hormones get released into the blood, and from there they will go to the target organ. Okay, for example, I told you in boys there would be a hormone which will tell the facial hair to start growing at a certain age. So it will be produced somewhere, that that hormone will travel now to the part of your facial place where it will tell those hair to start growing. This entire process is well coordinated, well connected, and it will happen at its particular time. Okay, these hormones are what helps to control your mood, the growth, the development of your body, the way the metabolism is working, reproduction. Basically, the reproduction also is connected by these hormones. Okay, how much of the hormone getting released, how less of the hormone getting released, that also causes a lot of diseases. Okay, less or more causes diseases. Sometimes some things, the hormones affect things and they get you stress, some kind of infection, or all these things affect. A very simple hormone I'll tell you, which you all will understand very well, is that your pancreas is producing the hormone insulin. That insulin goes into your uh, body's digestive system, and it tells the digestive system that wherever there are big carbohydrate molecules, break them into small glucose molecules. Okay, the minute the pancreas is not doing the function, it is not producing the hormone insulin. Now that insulin is not there. So what is happening? That your carbohydrates is just remaining there and there itself only. It is not getting broken down. So that is why you see more of carbohydrates, more of glucose in your bloodstream, and you become diabetic. That is how the diabetes also gets affected by the production of an hormone. So hormone production right amount is very important. Less or more will cause trouble. Even less if you produce trouble, even more you produce, that is also a trouble. Okay. So this is how the endocrine systems work. This is what is an endocrine system in our body. Next. So which glands are there in our body? We'll start right from the top. We spoke about the two glands in our brains, the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland. They are there right in the brains, okay? The hypothalamus and the pituitary gland. There's also one small gland inside it, which is called as the pineal gland, okay? Then just right near your throat, there is something which is called as a thyroid gland. If you must have seen pictures or something, people get hypothyroidism, hyperthyroidism, and they get a disease called as goiter. Goiter happens. That is because when your thyroid is not working well. Okay, so thyroid is also an important gland. The hormones released by the thyroid gland are also very important. They may cause dwarfism growth, or they may cause gigantism growth. People growing very, very tall. Very tall means, I mean 7 feet, 8 feet, and very, very short also. So that entire growth, the height is being affected by your thyroid glands. There's a thymus that is somewhere near to your lungs and your heart. There is one thymus gland. Pancreas gland, I spoke about how they are producing the hormone insulin. Okay. Then there are adrenal glands. Adrenal glands are present on the kidneys. On both the kidneys, there are adrenal glands. Those glands help the kidneys to decide how much quantity of water has to be taken back and how much water has to be put back into the urine. So that entire water regulation happens by your adrenal glands. Okay. In boys, it will be the testicles that will be acting as one of the hormone releasing gland, the endocrine gland, and for girls, it will be the ovaries that will be important for deciding. So these both are the reproductive, the glands that decide the reproduction. How the reproduction takes place, that is done by the ovaries and the testes, that is in boys and in girls. Okay. And even when during pregnancy, there is a formation of placenta. That placenta helps to release a lot of hormones to the growing child also. So all these hormones are there in a body, all these glands are there in a body, and they release hormones. Very, very important to release the hormones in the right quantity. Less or more will be trouble. Okay. Next. So this is a very short brief of it. For example, we'll talk about the pineal gland. It releases the hormone melatonin. Okay, uh, that will decide your biological clock. Basically, it will tell you whether you are able to reproduce or no. So that is decided. One melatonin thing is there. Uh, MSH, that is one of the short form of it. MSH, melatonin hormone. Okay. Pituitary gland is the master gland. Pituitary gland is called as the master gland. It controls the other glands also. Okay, so it controls the ovaries, it controls the kidneys, it also controls many other, the uterus, the breast tissues. All of those things are controlled by your pituitary gland. So it is called as the master gland. Thyroid gland releases an hormone thyroxine, which affects the liver. Okay, so it controls the metabolic rate, how fast you're able to digest the metabolism in your body. Adrenal glands, uh, sometimes you say there is an adrenal rush. There's an adrenal rush. You want to do something. So it is called as the fight or the flight hormone. So those two hormones are there. For example, fight means to start something, and flight means to make less. So both these phenomenons is connected by your adrenal glands, the hormones that are produced by that. Pancreas produces insulin. Along with insulin, also produce glucagon. Like insulin breaks glucose, glucagon stores glucose. So they are two different, two opposite. Don't get into the details of it. Just remember pancreas for insulin right now. Okay, it helps to control the blood sugars. And the ovaries and the testes, they're important for the reproduction. They are affecting the uterus, and the testes are also releasing a hormone called testosterone. They are responsible for the male characteristics as you undergo the process of puberty. Okay, so endocrine glands, endocrine system is very interesting. Though we have a lot of system, this system is the one that is actually controlling your entire body. Okay, that how and where what has to be produced, what not has to be produced, and how it has to change. So that is how your endocrine system is very, very interesting. Okay, so uh, next, any questions related to endocrine system?
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
Okay, so we'll go to the next, that is the teeth. We'll talk about the human teeth. How many teeth do we have?
Ma'am, an adult has 32 teeth.
Yes, we'll go to the next slide. So basically, what is the importance of teeth? Firstly, it helps to bite. So the food, the mechanical chewing is taking place by your teeth. Your teeth is making the pieces smaller and smaller. That is very important. And the secondly,
Ma'am, babies
because
have 20 teeth.
okay, and it also helps us to speak clearly. So if the person has teeth, if you have noticed a person who has teeth, who doesn't have teeth or who wears those dentures, if you check them out without the dentures, how they speak, and with the dentures when they speak, they will be different. So it is important for the teeth, for the chewing, as well as the speech comes out well when the teeth is there. Okay, next. So we'll study the structure of the teeth, how the structure of the teeth is there. The teeth basically has three parts. See, on the left side, you can see how there is a crown. Okay, that crown is made up of the enamel, the white part, and the below part, that is a dentine. Okay, and the gum. So these three parts are making the crown part of it. The neck part is what is connecting the crown and the root. So it's basically the gums. The gums are what is connecting the crown and the root. Okay, and the root is what you can't really see. So what things are there in the root? What things are there? You'll see the pulpy material, that is all the nerves and the blood vessels are there, and the bony part also. Okay, so all these parts are present in your teeth, the crown, the neck, and the root. Okay, they say that the bone of the teeth is one of the hardest part of your body. The enamel is the hardest part of your body. Okay, it is white color and it is mainly made up of calcium phosphate. So to maintain that, what people do is, you in the tubes, the brushing tubes that you use, the Colgate, Pepsodent, all of those, they add calcium and phosphate to it, so that you don't lose up on your calcium and phosphate uh, while you're eating. Because when you eat a lot of, now you know, acids, bases, salts. So you eat a lot of acidic food. That acidic food tends to erode your calcium, and so you need to replenish it either by eating well, or then when you brush teeth also, that also helps the temporary replenishing of your your calcium part of the tooth. Okay. Now, what is the dentine? The dentine is a hard tissue that is below the enamel. It contains very small microscopic tubes. Okay. Then we are talking about the gums. The gums is what you can see also, you can feel also with your hands. The soft
Ma'am,
material.
it is a red color, no? The gums.
Yes. So that is the one that is surrounding the neck of your teeth. Okay. Now, whenever any one of you has undergone through a root canal, what happens is that your teeth was probably, I'm talking about the permanent teeth, that the teeth that you had has got eroded, and that erosion, that gums, that bacterial infection has gone right from your enamel into the dentine. It has now reached into your pulp. So now there's an infection in your pulp. There is no way out other than to make that part senseless. So what do? Is they remove the pulp. They will remove, depending on the infection, they will do a root canal. So what they do is they put holes into your teeth more, and they will remove the entire pulpy material. All the pulpy material will be removed out. All the blood and all the nerves part will be removed, and they will fill it up then with some material, some filling material into it. For example, we had spoken about amalgam, gold amalgam, silver amalgam, or basically now we don't like to see those gold and silver. So what we put is we put a white color ceramic part into it. Okay, so this is how your root canaling takes place. And there are a lot of ligaments also that is helping to catch your teeth tight. This is how your structure of the teeth works. Okay, next. Okay, there are two types of teeth. One is called as a temporary teeth and one is called as a permanent teeth. Normally, when you're born, you are never born with teeth. There could be exceptions, but normally when you're born, you can never be born with teeth. Okay, and after your second or your third year, you start getting small teeth. By the time you are the age of, say, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, you get around 20 number of teeth. The total number of teeth that you will be having would be 20. Those teeth after a certain age will fall off. That is why they're called as temporary teeth. So those 20 teeth that you get in the beginning, they will fall off, and you will call them as temporary teeth. Okay. Now, after that, the teeth, the new ones that you get, are called as the permanent one. They are your second set of teeth, and they are slightly larger than your previous ones. Your previous ones were slightly smaller because you were small. So now these teeth will be permanent. They will stay with you till you die. They'll be slightly bigger in size, and they'll be more stronger also. And the enamel will be very thick. Okay, so this difference will take place in your temporary and in your permanent teeth. Okay, finally at the end, when you uh, are around 18 years of age, you will get 32 number of permanent teeth. So basically you get first 20, they fall off, and you will get another 32 number of teeth. Okay, so this is the total number of teeth that you will be having by the time you will be an adult. Next. Okay, now we'll see the different types of teeth. So there are four types of teeth. Okay, one are called as the incisors. So incisors are the first four teeth in the beginning. So see, now whenever I'm talking about the number, I'm talking about one part of the jaw. Okay, so now we've got two jaws, the upper part and the below part, right? Now the upper part will have 16 teeth. The below part will have again 16 teeth, the upper jaw and the below jaw. So the upper jaw has 16 teeth and the below part has 16 teeth. So that will become altogether 16 plus 16, that will become 32. Now I am talking about one part.
Ma'am, you're on mute.
Now what happens is, now the below part of your, now I'm talking, you either can connect to your upper or your lower jaw, any one of them, okay? The first four front teeth, okay? The first four front teeth which are flat, they're chisel shaped, they're like flat, they're flat in front of your mouth, okay? They will be called as incisors. Incisors, the first four, okay? Now those four in the below and the upper, so they will become 8, okay? And these four are very sharp, they help you to bite your food. So the biting of the food is happening with these incisors, okay? After that, next to the incisors, so next to the four, this uh, you've got one on each side, so four in between, and like two soldiers, two at the one on the left side, one on the right side. You will get your canines. They're called as the canine teeth, okay? Why are they called as canine teeth? Right now also, while I'm talking, you can check from your middle. You will get 1, 2, and then the third one, when you'll feel the third one, it will be pointy. See, try to feel it. From the middle of your teeth, any one jaw you take. If you want to take upper jaw, take upper jaw. You will count from middle, 1, 2, and then the third one, you will feel it very, very pointy. Okay, they are called as canines. Like your animals, your canine animals, your carnivorous animals which eat flesh, they have all teeth as canine teeth. So we have got two canine teeth like soldiers on sides of your incisors, two on the top, two soldiers on the top, two soldiers below. Okay, so you've got two up and two below.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes.
Ma'am, when your teeth fall, ma'am, is there any like particular manner that the teeth should fall in?
No, not really.
Ma'am, I can feel the pointed side of it.
Okay. Okay. Okay, so we've got after the incisors, we've got the canine. So we've got four incisors, four top, four below, two on the side soldiers, like two canine top, two canine below. Okay, so 4 and 4, 8, 8 and up 2 will be 10 and below 2 will be 12. So out of 32, we finished with 12 teeth. Okay, now if you can see in the pictures, now the teeth become slightly broader. Okay, so they are called as the premolars and the molars. Premolars are slightly broader in size, okay, and the molars are more broader to them. Okay, so you have got two premolars on the right side below, two premolars on the left side below. Okay, so you got four premolars. Four premolars are there below and up. They are basically flat. Okay, they are bigger than your incisors and canines. Okay, and they are used to crush the food. Okay, so the crushing of the food, basically the pasting of the food happens with your premolars. Okay, and then after that, next to them, you will get the molars. So there are 6 molars in each jaw. Means after the two premolars, you will have 3 molars on the right side, 3 molars on the left side below. So 3 and 3 will become 6 on each jaw. So premolars will be 2 on right side, 2 premolars on the left side, so that will be 4. After that, you will have 3 molars on the right side, 3 molars on the left side. That will become 6. So you've got 2 and 3 on one side of the jaw, that would be 5, and on the other side of the jaw, another 5. The molars and the premolars together. So 5 and 5 would be 10. So 10 and above also 10. That will become 20. So you'll get 20 plus we counted the back slide, we counted 12. So 20 and 12 is what you will get it as your 32 number. Okay. And out of those 3 molars that you get, the last set of the molars is you get pretty much older, means after you're 18. So that's why, just as a word saying, they say that it is a wisdom tooth. They're called as a wisdom tooth because they come a little bit later on. Okay. So this is how the teeth are there on the basis of their shape, size, and function. Okay. Next. There is a special dental formula to remember the number of the teeth. Okay. How do you write the dental formula is, so see, the initials are given. I is for incisor, C is for canine, PM is for premolar, M is for molar. Okay. Now this we calculate for upper or lower jaw, but only one half of the jaw. Okay. We'll calculate for only one half of the jaw. So that is why we put it in a bracket, and outside you write it 2. So when you write it 2, so you kind of multiply it. So when you multiply it, it becomes for the lower jaw or for the upper jaw. Okay. So now what happens is, I incisors 2. So now here you can see I incisors 2. In the picture you see the incisors in the lower part. This is the lower part, only the right side of the lower part, two incisors. Okay. Then C canine 1, premolars, 2 premolars, so 2. Okay, 1 and 2, and then molars you have got 3. So on one side of the teeth you have got how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So now you count here in your dental formula also. I is 2. 2 plus 1, 3. 3 plus 2, 5. 5 and 3, 8. So this upper part is showing for your one side of the jaw. Okay. Now it is showing the same thing for your lower jaw below. So upper is showing for your upper jaw right side, lower is showing for the lower right side of the jaw. Okay, that is how your dental formula works, and then you multiply it by 2, so you're multiplying it for the left side also. And that is how you get the lower jaw and the upper jaw both have got 16, 16, and you get it as 32. This is a way to write a dental formula for the permanent human teeth. Okay, so this is it. We finish with our teeth. Any questions related to your teeth?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So, Swapna, we finished the entire explanation.
Yes. So the topics